Hello and welcome to another episode of That Sports Guys podcast. I am Craig Forrestall. I am That Sports Guy. Go ahead and find me on Twitter at that_sports_guy, where you can find all of my latest football takes. Also, NFLDraftDiamonds.com is proud to feature the That Sports Guy podcast on its website. Stop by NFLDraftDiamonds.com, your official draft coverage king. Hello and welcome to another player profile interview. I am Craig Forrestall. You know me from Twitter as at that_sports_guy. With me today is Evan Horn, defensive back from New Hampshire. Evan, how we doing?
Good. I'm doing well today. I hope everyone's doing well as well.
Awesome. But I got to ask you, you shared with me that it's your first day back up on campus. You had yourself a little bit of a drive today. How did that whole thing go?
It went well. I was telling you earlier how I finally got used to the drive. It's about a 7-hour drive from Pennsylvania back up here to New Hampshire. But the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it, and it gets easier and easier.
And I got to know, because those winters are brutal in the Northeast. Do you have a cutoff date where it's just you will not let anyone drive up and visit you because the weather's just that bad?
Yeah, it's actually an argument I have with my girlfriend actually a lot from back home, in terms of her coming up to see me and stuff, and because it can get real bad real quick. So
that,
ahead,
I was saying, no, definitely. I don't blame you for wanting to put the best out for her. But let's stick there. Let's talk about Lebanon, Pennsylvania. That's home for you. What's it like growing up in Lebanon?
Yeah, it's definitely it's different, I think, than most people would envision growing up. My parents both grew up there, so my family's always been around there. And it's a big basketball town. Basketball is they just love basketball there more than anything else. And so I kind of grew up playing basketball. Basketball's my number one love. And obviously, as I got bigger and stronger and as I went through high school, football ended up becoming my main sport. So then I ended up coming here to New Hampshire.
And like you said, you grew up playing a lot of basketball. And I got to admit, like you said, I'm a basketball junkie myself. And I found a couple of your old high school highlights. And I noticed one thing off the bat. You were a walking bucket. So just pretty much, how much work did you put in, to your basketball game? And I just have to ask, were you one of those athletes where you were lifting at 6, 7 a.m. and getting your football work in high school until about 10, 11 a.m., whatever it might be, because then you had basketball camp in the afternoon and possibly a summer league game at night? Was that kind of a typical summer for you?
So, yeah, definitely. Well, to answer your first question, the basketball was kind of like everyone loves basketball in my hometown, like I told you. And as I was growing up, it was kind of something I wanted to send a statement to, because people love basketball where I'm from, but not a lot of people make it to a Division I school or even a Division II school or anything along those lines to go play basketball. And it was something I kind of prided myself in, and becoming one of those guys that can, end up not just being a really good high school basketball player, being able to prove myself at the college level. And so that's something I really took pride in. I really worked hard at it. And when you talk about the weight room in basketball, a funny story. So when I was a freshman, we had a class in high school that allowed you to lift before school during first period. So you go and you get to school, and the first thing you do is you have an hour lifting class. So, and as a freshman, I played on the varsity team, and obviously was put in that class for then during the winter and during basketball. So we're playing the league championship game, and the guy that was teaching that class didn't really know much. He was just kind of there to be the teacher for the class. Mm-hmm. The football coach ran the class, but he was just there to overlook and see what we were doing. And we had a league championship game on a Friday. And what do you know, Friday morning, the football workout for that class was a max squat test. So here I am getting ready to max squat before a league championship game, and I'm trying to argue with the guy that is teaching, saying that I shouldn't be doing this. There's more important things later in the day for me. But if you don't do the lifts that the guy requires, you end up getting an F for that day. That's how they did it. So long story short, I ended up having to squat because I didn't want to fail the class. So I max squatted before my league championship game my freshman year, but we ended up losing. But I don't think it would have mattered even if I didn't, because the team we played was pretty darn good. But regardless, it was just kind of a funny story to kind of interact the lifting and basketball at the same time.
Definitely. Now that is a pretty funny story because in my mind, I'm automatically thinking, if you're gonna make me do this, I'm just gonna dog it real quick. I'm gonna slap on not too much weight. I'm gonna act like I'm struggling and be like, "That's my max. I'm good. I'm out." But let's go ahead. Let's stick that to that. As high school progressed, you were very dominant in football, basketball, and track. But I want to stick primarily with the basketball and football recruiting focus. You were recruited as a Division I athlete for both football and basketball. Did you handle those separately? Did you have any schools that recruited you for both or offered you an opportunity to not only play football and basketball? Just how does that go when you're being recruited for two?
So it was really tough, I think, for me because, like I said, where I grew up, there's not a lot of guys that get opportunities to go on and play at a Division I school. And I think my only regret looking back on it is not telling coaches when I was a junior going through the main process that I'm going to play this sport or I'm going to play that sport. Because at the time, I really had no idea. I literally was saying to myself, I'm going to get to as many tournaments as I can, AAU-wise. I'm going to lift as much as I can, get as strong as I can, and get to much exposure as I can in both sports. And it ended up kind of not biting me in the butt, but it kind of, looking back on it, I wish I would have said to the coaches, this is what I'm doing. And because I think there was 3 or 4 coaches that my high school coach told me about that he talked to, and then they said to him, "Oh, I thought he was playing basketball." The football coach would say that, and the football coach or a basketball coach would say, "Oh, I thought he was playing football." So it was one of those things where I got offered for both sports around the same time. So I think it was March my junior year, I got offered by Bucknell for football, and then I think just 2 months later, Holy Cross offered me for basketball. So it was I had one offer each for the beginning of the summer, and then Temple ended up offering me at the beginning of June. So for the entire summer of my junior going into my senior year, it was literally just 2 for football, 1 for basketball. So it was no coach really knew in terms of, right, he's doing this, he's doing that. So it was really tough just kind of, weeding the weeds out and trying to figure out what I wanted to do in terms of what sport I wanted to pick. And I wouldn't say regret's the word, but because obviously I love playing each sport and I always want to do that. And I wanted to see how far I could take each sport. And, I had to make a decision. And, I'm happy I made the decision I made and where I'm at now. Definitely wouldn't do anything differently. But it's just something I always thought about. It's very difficult to do because I didn't have any guidance from other people. It was kind of just I was the first guy getting thrown into the fire.
And now, as you've progressed at New Hampshire, I saw something on the unionleader.com in an article where it was talking about your versatility. And the article said he plays both safety positions. He plays linebacker. He returns punts. He snaps punts. How do you return and snap punts? And as a safety, why do you know how to snap?
So, funny story about that. I always tell my coaches at college that there's got to be some sort of record because I can guarantee you that you're not going to find anybody else that has returned and snapped punts in the same game multiple times. There was a game, or I think there was 4 games my sophomore year where I did both of those things. And anyway, so it started out when I first got to college. They split up specialists, and they said if you want to be a snapper, go over here. And I did it all throughout high school because for some reason I was always good at it, and I just always just kind of went with it. And then the first thing is right before the first game, my true freshman year, Coach Mack asked if I ever returned punts, and I said no, because I never did that in high school. I never returned punts in high school. And he goes, "Why don't you go back and catch some?" Because the guy that we had that returned punts for 4 years, just graduated. So really, he was just throwing anybody in the fire to see if they could do it. And long story short, he saw me catch 4 or 5 punts, and it was a week before our opener against Maine, which is our huge rival. It was a Thursday night game. It was the first FCS game of the entire year. And he comes up to me on the Thursday before and goes, "Ev, you're going to return punts on or no, it was the Wednesday before the game. He goes, "Ev, you're going to return punts tomorrow." And there I am thinking, what do you mean? I was just going to go catch 5 in practice and be done with it. And there I was thrown right in the middle of the fire and never caught a punt before in my entire football career. And here I am in my first college game catching punts and my biggest game up to date because it was the first one. And it was definitely nerve-wracking, but obviously the nerves have gone away now. I'm a little more comfortable with it. But so that's kind of how that came about.
And I want to ask you, with that versatility, I want to focus on where you're most comfortable right now, if it's at free, strong safety, wherever it might be. And then I want to throw out a scenario down the road where if an NFL team were to want to put some weight onto you and have you play kind of that chase and cover linebacker position in those sub packages. So let's just go ahead and start off first with where are you most comfortable on the field?
I think I'm most comfortable. Honestly, I've been arguing with my coaches now at school about being able to kind of roam more free and kind of be able to not have much responsibility, because I think I really strive in really anywhere on the field in terms of, just if you put me in a situation where I just go make a play, in terms of I'm just free to do whatever I want to do, in terms of if the quarterback looks one way, I can break on the ball and just kind of being that ball hawk. And if you had to say a position, I would probably say strong, like you said, down in that box. And I wouldn't mind putting on a couple pounds. I'm up to actually right now I'm around 210 pounds. So I'm not obviously linebacker weight, but I could also play the middle of the field, and I'm really comfortable playing the middle of the field. And so, yeah, I mean, if that's something they would ask me to do, I think like you said, with versatility, that's one thing I take pride in. I don't have one skill set or one skill that's way above everything else. I think a lot of my skills are about even in terms of how important they are and how good I am at each one. So I think that's definitely something that could help me in the future.
And there's a rich football tradition at New Hampshire, and with them being in the playoffs, what is the mindset with the team when it comes to getting back to the playoffs?
Yeah, so that's something obviously that we obviously did not expect and did not want the past 2 years, is breaking that streak that we had. But at the end of the day, I've been talking to a lot of the coaches and the players about it. I mean, you could talk about the streak, the 14 years, whatever you want to call it, but we never won a championship throughout those 14 years. I mean, we made the playoffs, made the semifinals 2 years, but I mean, there really was nothing that came about those things instead of bragging about going to the playoffs. And I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously going to the playoffs is great. And as me, I just don't see personally. I mean, people have their own opinions, but I just don't see the reason why you should celebrate just making it to the playoffs. And I mean, it's great. Like I said, playoffs are awesome. You got to get to the playoffs before you get to the national championship game, and that's something that he's preached, because there's steps you got to take. But so obviously, the thing that I'm trying to instill into people that we don't want to just shoot for this. Usually can get us into the playoffs. We want to go above and beyond that and do something that hasn't been done before to make up for those 2 years that we obviously haven't made it. And with 1 year left, I'm really hoping that this year could be the year we could just keep climbing the way we've been climbing throughout these Zoom workouts and the Zoom meetings. But so yeah, that's pretty much where we're at.
And you have 4 career touchdowns. When the ball's in your hands, what is your mindset?
Well, I think the mindset would be to score, obviously, but I think a couple of my touchdowns have been 2 of them actually. Well, one of them was probably, you've never seen a touchdown like that before. It was actually, we played Albany at home, and it was like a game or two right after I had my other pick six against JMU, which was like a 75-yard just outrun them. But they were on their own like 5-yard line, and I was sent on a safety blitz off the edge, and I was supposed to peel with the running back if the running back did a swing route, and they were setting up a screen pass for the running back. And as soon as running back went out, I obviously peeled with him, but I went a little farther than I probably should have to try to bait the quarterback into lobbing it up because the pressure was coming. And I jumped and got a hand on it and ended up catching the ball in the end zone for essentially a pick six in the end zone. So it was a 0-yard pick six. So, I mean, in that terms, I didn't have to do anything with the ball. I just really just captured it in the end zone. That's probably one of the more rare pick sixes you'll see. But, yeah, I mean, obviously once you get it, just score and just, try to make offense out of defense. So,
and we've talked about where you're comfortable in your versatility, but if you had to just pick out one part of your game that you feel sets you apart, what would that be?
I would say my instincts. I'm not I would say I'm a pretty good athlete, but I'm not going to wow you away with a 40 time. I'm not going to wow you away with a lot of like the intangibles, but I think my game speaks for itself in terms of, I've been making plays the past couple of years. When you look at this, and I'm not a big stats guy, but when you do look at stats, my stats are pretty, well up there in terms of how other people have fared. And when you think about the game, my 2 biggest things would be my instincts and how knowledgeable I am of the game. I really understand how defenses work and why they do the things they do. I think that's allows me to be a 40 guy. We talk about the 40, and maybe I run a high 4.5, but that knowing the defense and knowing what the offense is trying to do turns me into a 4.45 guy on the field. So that's something that I've always said to people that that I think that would make me a little different. And obviously, as time goes on, I'll get more quicker, and those things you can all work on. But just being able to know the game and stuff is definitely putting you a step ahead of everyone else.
Evan, we focused a lot on your athletic accomplishments so far, and I want to take a step off the field, and I want to get a chance for not only me, but then for everyone else to get to know you. And I'm going to start off with what everyone says is the hardest question, and that is, what song are you embarrassed to admit you like?
Song I'm embarrassed to admit. So there's that new song that came out like a year ago, I think. It's by that girl Lizzo.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason behind it is because it does have a nice beat to it, but I'm actually a Vikings fan. And when my dad's like a real old school kind of guy, he doesn't really listen to music like that. And she sings the song and she goes like, it's like New Man on the Minnesota Vikings or something like that. And my dad thought it was hilarious. Ever since that, my dad and I have had like this special bond to that song. And we've always listened to it in the car. And trust me, he's not a rap kind of guy. And it's just kind of been the one song that is definitely not going to tell people much about that I like, but I do like a lot.
And then what's your dream car?
So really, I'm not much of a car guy, to be honest with you. I'm really cool with getting from point A to point B with really anything. If I had to say a dream car, I like Corvettes. My uncle actually had a Corvette growing up that I used to take girls on dates and whatnot because it was a nice car. But besides the Corvette, I mean, that's what I would say. But besides, I wouldn't really have like a specified car, but that's what I would say.
What's been the most memorable or interesting class that you've taken at New Hampshire?
Oh, man. Memorable class. Interesting, though. I did take it's called Principles of Coaching Basketball class. So essentially, it's the assistant basketball coach of women's or men's. They like switching in and out, and they essentially teach you how to coach basketball. But for me, it was a pretty easy class considering I played basketball my entire life. So it was interesting in terms of it was just very easy, and you wouldn't expect to find a class like that in college. But it was like a 2-credit course. So it wasn't like it was a big class, but it was definitely something. It was funny to take when you talk about it.
What's the best restaurant around campus or close to campus?
Best restaurant, I would have to say. There's not many. I mean, the main one is Libbys Bar and Grill, and I would probably say that's my go-to. That's where a lot of guys go after the games with their parents and families and whatnot, and that's always a cool scene after a win because we have a game around earlier in the day. The majority of the team and their families that kind of go downtown to the bar there, and they all drink, and we get food, and it's really nice to be together with the team and do that bonding with not just your team but with their families as well. So that's probably my favorite bar, place.
And so then, what's the favorite meal there? If I'm gonna show up there after a game and I'm at Libby's, what do I have to order?
I would say so. My go-to is a steak Caesar wrap with waffle fries. You'd be surprised, actually. They do it. I don't know why, but something about that place, their wraps are a little different than usual.
All right. I'll take your word for it. And now,
you have to try it out. That and they do some appetizer of nachos, and they're like they call them grande nachos. So they could. It's very hard to eat them with like 5 people. I mean, they're huge, and it's very good too. So those are the 2 things I would say.
All right. And now, if you won $1 million, but could only donate that $1 million to one charity or one cause, what would it be?
One charity or one cause, probably be probably something to do with the families that are the third world countries and stuff like that. I've always found it interesting to people that would go over there and help them out, and teachers and stuff. I know some people that have gone over there and actually help them out in Africa, and that's probably something I would definitely be interested in looking at if I had the money.
Definitely. And then before I let you get out of here, Evan, what is the one thing that we all need to be on the lookout for with the New Hampshire football team coming up this year?
I would say a team that's that's taken that next step in terms of we've obviously been playing the cards we've been dealt with this whole coronavirus, and we haven't felt bad about it in terms of we know everyone else is going through the same thing, and we've kind of taken it and run with it in terms of there's things that we've been doing that I think a lot of schools haven't been doing. And, you know, we're trying to take that next step, even if we're not together. I mean, we're doing Zoom meetings a lot. We're interacting with our teammates and learning a lot more than most teams, I think. And we're learning about the game. And I think that's really going to give us a step ahead. And I think we're going to make some noise this year with however many games we get to play. And I'm just looking forward to getting out in the field, hopefully, and getting on with the season.
You heard it here first. New Hampshire's going to make some noise this season. For Evan Horn, I'm Craig Forrestall. Until next time, stay safe and be easy.
Hey everybody, Craig Forrestall. Thanks for tuning in and listening to another episode of That Sports Guys podcast. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at @that_sports_guy to catch all the latest updates and podcast episodes. Until next time, stay safe and be easy.